All right, this is compare rational numbers homework. Take a look at number 1. It says to compare negative 2.8 and negative 2 1/8. Now, before we can compare, we have to make this one into a fraction. So 1/8 as a fraction, we can't, 8's not a place value. We can't multiply 8 by anything to turn it into a place value. It doesn't have to do with money, so we're going to have to divide it out. So 8 goes into 10 one time, remainder of 2. 8's going to go into 20 two times with a remainder of 4. And 8 goes into 40 5 times. So this is really equal to negative 2.125. So now we're comparing negative 2.8 and negative 2.125. Well, when we look on a number line, negative 2.8 would be further to the left. So that means this one is smaller. So our inequality sign should be a less than symbol because this one would be less than this. All right, take a look at number 2. During a very cold weekend in January, the temperature at sunrise was negative 3.2 degrees Celsius. The temperature on Sunday was negative 2.7 degrees Celsius. Compare the temperatures using greater than or less than symbol. So this one's a little bit easier. They already have both numbers as a decimal for you. So I'm going to set this up for you. But I want you guys to determine which number would be further to the left on the number line. So if this was negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, put both of those on the number line and then determine which one is greater or less than the other. All right, take a look at number 3. It says the table shows possible elevations expressed as rational numbers relative to sea level of an eel and an anglerfish. Compare the absolute values of the elevations for the eel and the anglerfish using greater than or less than symbol. So if I made a picture of some water and I said that the eel is really only negative 1.19 kilometers underwater. So eel kind of looks like a snake here. So from here to here, it's negative 1.19. But remember, when we're talking about distance, distance is always positive. So we would say it's 1.19 kilometers below sea level. And then if we had this fish, it's going to be a little bit deeper. The fish is 2.05 kilometers underwater. Okay, so we want to compare the two, and when we compare with distance, we're using those absolute value signs. So I'm going to set this up for you. The absolute value of negative 1.19 and the absolute value of negative 2.05. Remember, when that negative sign's on the inside of the absolute value symbols, distance becomes positive. So this is really 1.19. This is really 2.05. So I'm going to let you guys decide what inequality sign, greater than or less than, goes in between those. All right, take a look at number 4. This one's multiple choice. We're going to determine which number line displays the numbers in order from least to greatest. So if I look at the first number line, I can see there's a dot for negative 1 right here. But I see on the number line, negative 1's actually here, so that one's definitely not right. So I'm going to go to B. B has positive numbers down at the negative side, so that's not right. I'm going to check C. C has negative 1 plotted here, which is correct, but oh, there's another positive down on the negative, so that can't be right. So let's look at D. D, we've got positive 1.8 between 1 and 2, which is correct. 3.8 between 3 and 4, that's correct. Negative 1, and then negative 1 and 3/5 is between negative 1 and 2. That is correct. All right, flip it to the back. The table below shows the elevation in kilometers of 4 different fish. We got fish I, F, I, S, and H. And here are their depths below sea level. So they want us to order these from the greatest depth to the least depth. So remember, when we're talking depth, that has to do with absolute value. So again, if I were to draw the water, I want to turn all of these into decimals so that I can compare. And if I said this was -1 kilometer, or, yep, 1 kilometer underwater, and this was -2, then -1.8 would be right about here. So here's fish F. Okay, -2 1/5. Well, we said 1/5 is really like 0.2, so this is really -2.2. So fish I is really about right here underwater. -3/4 or 3/4, we can turn that into money, would be -0.75. That would be about right here for fish S. And the 1/5 we said was 0.2, and this is negative. So fish H would be right here underwater. So the greatest depth would be fish I, and then it would go to fish F, and then S, and then the least depth would be fish H. All right, take a look at number 6. This one's similar to what we just did. We've got 4 submarines that are underwater. Here's how far underwater they are. That's their depth. So which number line correctly shows the depth of the submarines in order from the least towards the negatives to the greatest towards the positives? So I'm going to look at each of these number lines. So the first one, if I look at submarine W, I'm looking for it to be at -1.6. So -1.6 is going to be between -1 and -2. And in this first choice, there is no submarine W in here. So I know that's not correct. So now I'm going to go to number line B. I'm going to look again. -1.6 is in here, but I still don't see submarine W. So that can't be it. Look at choice C. Well, submarine W is here around -1.6. So let's check X is at -3. Submarine Y should be at -3.4, which is between -3 and -4. And Z is -2.7. So this one looks like it's the correct choice. And if I look at D, again, submarine W is not between here. So I can eliminate that. And all of these look like they're correctly placed on the number line.